Today on Your Questions Answered, I have a question from Bolstein Newton. Can you recommend an affordable tenon saw for a beginner? Hope you enjoy. What I've done is gone ahead and grabbed a couple of my hand saws here that are what I consider good value. Now, I have done a video on a complete sort of beginner's kit, which includes both the back saws and the panel saws, and if you're interested in that, do check that out down below, because I'm not going to cover as much detail as I did in that video just for answering this question. So what I've got here is a couple of Spear & Jackson back saws and two back saws which are gent saws, so they're the smaller style of back saw. So let's jump in here and I'll go through each one of these and talk about why I think they're actually a good beginner saw. So what we're going to look at first are these gent saws. Now, this particular one is no longer in manufacturing, but it's the same or very similar to the Lynx saws, and they might have been bought out, I'm not sure, because this one is the Greaves & Sons, and I can't find them for sale anymore, and I think they might have been bought out by Lynx. I'm not 100% sure, but this is the 200mm Lynx gent saw, which is $27. This is the 250mm Pax gent saw, and that is $59. I just wanted to talk about the amount of teeth per inch on gent saws, and not these Spear & Jacksons, but other back saws as well. This gent one, yes, it's a premium brand, but this is 20 teeth per inch. Now, at 20 teeth per inch, these are very, very difficult to sharpen and virtually impossible to actually set properly. You have to use a very fine saw set or a very, very fine punch, in my opinion, to actually set these. So I don't recommend going anything above about 16 teeth per inch, which I believe this one was 15 teeth per inch actually. And so I don't recommend going any less than 16 teeth per inch. When you get down below 16, the teeth just get so tiny. And you can see on this one, the teeth are still pretty small, but each one of them is about 2mm, maybe 2.5mm in height. And so they're much easier to see to actually sharpen them. And really, the performance in cutting from 16 teeth per inch to 20, in my opinion, is negligible. Yes, it takes slightly longer because there's slightly more teeth, and does it give a slightly smoother cut? Yes, but are you really going to notice the difference? Probably not. And what I recommend for beginners when they're sawing is to saw just off your line and then using a shooting board to shoot back up to it. And so that extra smoothness is going to be completely pointless in the long run. You just want to get it cut and cut as fast as you can. Now, both of these ones are in a rip cut, and when you're down at that 16 or even the 20, I don't really notice any difference between the rip cut and the cross cut patterns. I have had this one. I did sharpen this one as a cross cut to see if there was a difference, and I didn't really notice any difference. So you really want in the gent saws to look for a rip cut saw. They're still going to do your cross cutting. Yeah, they're going to be a little bit slower, but with the small teeth, they're actually not going to be bad. Now, in terms of the length, I've had this one for a long time, this 200mm one. If you can get the longer ones in the 250mm, around that 16 teeth per inch, I would say go for it, because the extra length is worth it in terms of the accuracy of your sawing. And if you want to hear a little bit more about what I think in terms of the length of the saw and how accurate it makes your sawing, do leave that down below and we can make a video on talking about the length of the saw plate and sort of the accuracy of the sawing. I have sort of mentioned it once before, so yeah, if you do want to see that, if there's enough interest, I might make that video, so do leave your interest down below. So the gent saw here by Lynx is actually one of the most affordable, and most of them are at this 200mm length, and I think this is probably your best bet. You can use this for doing your dovetailing work, and if you're just using store-bought timber that's not even that thick and not that wide, and it's already, you know, being processed, then something like this is going to cut through your 19, 20mm boards with relative ease. And you know, if you're cutting stuff up to about maybe 150 mil, this is going to do quite a good job. You can cut wider up to about 250 mil with these, but the technique is a little different that you use for sawing, and the shorter plate is a little annoying for that. But for most of your work, just a cheap gent saw like this, steel back, is going to actually get your job done. Now we move into what's really called back saws, tenon saws. They're interchangeable. You'll hear carcass saws and dovetail saws. All of them are a style of back saw, and really back saw is quite often interchanged with tenon saw, and so that's what we've got here. This one here, just let me read the model number out to you. This one is a 250mm 5410Y. Now, this is what I consider the Spear & Jackson, dovetail saw, really. Essentially, it is just a small back saw, and it's kind of the English style of a dovetail saw. Just a small tenon. This one is $72.16 on Amazon Australia. Now, do beware if you try to pick these up locally within Australia, they're a lot more expensive than Amazon, so well over $100. So I would consider, if you are going to pick this up, you're going to have to get it off Amazon to have it at a reasonable price, unless you can find somewhere else. But in my searching, all the local places here in Australia were a lot more expensive than Amazon. So this one, Amazon. Now, this one was a 13 teeth French, I believe it was, and it is in the rip cut. This one didn't need to be reprofiled. I'm pretty sure this one came rip cut. I will leave something on the screen if I got that wrong. Now, these are actually a really decent one. Now, the handle didn't come like this. If we look at these sort of saws, the handles were more sort of like this ugly sort of square shape. And I did a video on reprofiling it, where I then stained it and shellacked it. Shellac's wearing off a little bit here, which probably means it soaked a little more in, so I'm going to have to recoat that again. But this came with it's like a purple handle, so after I had reshaped it, I just opted to stain it to make it all look the same. So it was a tinted shellac that I used for that. So your handles won't look like this, and you'll have to reprofile them, and I've got a video on how to do that. And you can see that I've reprofiled both of these to a very similar styling, which is way more comfortable, way more functional to get the hand in there. And the use of the horns is vital on all of these hand tools that have them. They're there for a reason. They're not there for just the fun of it. So I think these are actually a really decent saw, considering they are they look like they're a folded brass back. They could be glued in there, but I can't quite tell, so they look folded to me. Similarly, we have the larger tenon here, which is at the 300mm length, and this one is the 9550B from Spear & Jackson, and once again, you want to get it off Amazon Australia. $63.91 is the cost that I've seen it just recently before I made this video, and this is another good budget option, although probably not as versatile as the smaller one, because this one is too big and heavy to really try and do dovetails with, but this one you can definitely do dovetails with. So I think this is actually sort of the best value for money, bang for buck, if you're gonna go for one of these. So they're the saws that I actually recommend, and I just wanted to do a few comparisons. I've got a few prices written down here just to compare them to other tenon saws that are available. Now, some of these other ones might be better value for you depending on what country you're in. So the very first is, I just wanted to compare it to a couple of the premium saws like Veritas and Pax. So in terms of the Veritas carcass saw, that's $186 here at Carbotech in Australia. That was the cheapest price I could find that for. And then if we look at the Pax tenon saw, so it's essentially the Pax version of this. They don't seem to have a small tenon from what I could find, and that's $230 here in Australia. And then obviously I already mentioned these two gent saws. with the Lynx one being $27, the PAX one being $59. And there's one other brand that is available here at a good price and has a pretty good reputation, and that's the Two Cherries brand, and that's at $25. So yeah, and that was for I think that was the 250ml one at $25. So it's a pretty good price, and I will leave these links down below just so you can check them out for yourself and correct myself if I got something wrong here. I think a good combination for a beginner, if you just want to get one saw, go for the straight small gent saw. I think it's going to be the most useful because you can do a little bit of joinery with it. You're probably working with smaller parts, and so a smaller saw, lighter saw is not a bad way to go. Although these saws are a little bit harder to get used to the holding technique, but you do have to get all your alignment correct. And the way you hold these is sort of a little different to the conventional. And if you want to get used to the more Western saw with the standard style of handle, these ones are much better because they're much sort of more user-friendly to hold and get your technique correct. And so if you did want to pick up either one of these, I think they're both good options. But together, I think they make a good kit. Or if you do want to go for the two tenon saws, they actually make a good kit as well, and both those Spear and Jacksons together are cheaper than just one Veritas saw or one PAX saw. So yeah, you could actually purchase, I think it was all four of these ones that I've got here, cheaper than the price of the PAX tenon saw. So we're looking at what I consider good quality saws that can be resharpened. Most of them have brass backs, as you see here. Nothing wrong with the steel backs. They're a little bit lighter and sometimes come with a slightly cheaper price point, but you're not really going to find these tenon styles with the steel backs. At least I couldn't find them in a resharpenable version. Other options are some of these store-bought ones that you get from these big box stores that have impulse hardened teeth, and while I don't advocate for them, they're usually at not a bad price, but I don't think you can really beat the price of these ones for resharpenability and being able to adjust your set and all of that, which I've got some videos, so I'll leave them down below where you would work out how to adjust your set, how to sharpen them, how to reprofile them, how to change your handles up. I've got videos on all of them down below. So there you have it, folks. These are the saws that I recommend. They're the ones that I use, and I've had no problems with them, even at that cheaper price point. And I'm pretty aware that a lot of you have used a lot of these Spear and Jackson style ones before as well. So I think together, the Spear and Jacksons in their complete kit is great value. Just the individual saws are great value as well, and any combination that you sort of get of the Spear and Jacksons and Lynx gent saws, you're not going to have too many issues. And as I said, if you're looking around and you're finding some other ones, and I know there's some different models of these Spear and Jackson ones out there that are not available to me here in Australia, and they look very similar, just be aware you really want to be looking for rip cut, I think, and no more teeth than 16 teeth per inch. Somewhere in that 12 to 13, 15 range is where these saws sit, and that's where I recommend you stick, because they're going to be so much easier to sharpen, use, and you're going to be much happier using them. So if you like this video, please do like and subscribe down below, and while you're down there, do sound off in the comments if you've got any other recommendations, and maybe even some prices for things like the Veritas and PAX saws where you live. I'd much appreciate just leaving some of that information down there to help others out that are in those countries. And if you want to see another Your Questions Answered video, do check out the playlist up here, which has all the Your Questions Answered videos up there. So your question might have already been answered, but if it's not, do leave it down below and we might make a video on it. Bye for now.